Good morning, YouTube. Today I have prepared a list.
Yes.
My own list, not inspired from anybody else's websites, because usually I just disagree with them. But Neelix, these are the car brands that I think are most likely to pull out of the U.S. or die entirely by the end of the decade.
Like well-known car brands you're talking about.
The top 5.
And you're putting them on the chopping board.
Correct.
Okay.
So like Alfa Romeo just went out of the U.S. They only had
Right.
the 4C. It's gone. There's been plenty of brands that have gone out in the last 15 years or so, especially with the last recession, like GM axed Pontiac and Saturn. There's Oldsmobile a few years before that. Plymouth, Saab.
Right.
Something like that. The next brand to go. There's so many right now, especially a lot of new ones.
You're like Nostradamus right now.
Right.
So exciting.
My list is the ones most likely to least likely as far as the
Okay.
top 5. But I'm going to start with the ones that I think most people think are going to go, but I don't think they will by the end of the decade.
Interesting.
Like the first one, like Fiat.
Right.
They only sold 605 cars in the U.S. last year.
Stop it. Seriously?
Really, really bad.
Because you still see them all over the place.
Not that much. I mean, there's still
Yeah.
hundreds of dealers for Fiat,
Right.
but they're not selling any cars.
Just 600.
But Fiat is such a core brand of Stellantis, of this larger brand that's Italian-based, that I just don't see how they could. Especially since so many dealers invested in their own dedicated dealers. And also, the new Fiat 500 is coming to the U.S. It's fully electric. It's going to be cheap. I imagine it'll sell well enough to keep Fiat going for quite a while.
Okay, so you think they're sticking around for sure?
I think so. Volvo is another one people will talk about being on life support. I don't think so. Their sales are up 20% from last year. They're doing a lot of plug-in hybrid stuff, and they have unlimited money since they've been bought out from China. So China now has a brand with a foothold in the U.S.
Yeah.
I don't see them giving up.
Yeah. No,
So-
they're holding on to that puppy.
Right. Mitsubishi is another one. Everyone's been saying for 20 years Mitsubishi's going out. I don't think so. Their sales are up a little bit again, and also in uncertain times, like say in a bad economy that everybody says is coming, they sell really cheap cars.
Right. Well, they sell appliances too. They have their foot in all different doors, so.
Right. Globally, they'll never go away, but I'm
Right.
talking about pulling out of the U.S. when it comes to car
Got
sales.
it.
Suzuki was one I forgot to mention, pulled out 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They still have Suzuki all over the place,
Okay.
but not in the U.S.
Right.
And they still have a really good plug-in hybrid with the
Right.
Outlander that starts at like 40 grand, so that's a
Yeah.
great price point.
Yeah.
And then they sell the cheapest car in the U.S. at like 16 grand for the Mirage. Even though it's a terrible car, it's a cheap car, brand new with a warranty.
Do you remember the Mitsubishi Eclipse?
Oh, yes.
That was like my dream car. I wanted one so bad because they priced it good when they came out.
Right.
Why would they get rid of that?
They have the Eclipse actually as a small SUV now.
See, it's totally not the same.
Not
as
the
when
same
it was
thing.
first born.
And then Lotus is another one.
Yeah.
Where they only sold 500 cars in 2022 is what I
Right.
could find. I couldn't find 2023 sales, but their sales continue to go up.
Right.
And it's just a little bespoke brand. A lot of people have like a luxury dealership and they're a new Lotus dealer,
Right.
but really their focus is selling high-end exotic cars, so they don't really want to give up their Lotus new car dealer branding. And also, they're doing a really good job of reimagining themselves sort of as an electric sports car brand, which nobody else is really doing all that well at a lower price point. I say lower, under $100,000. And they actually have 17,000 orders on their new cars. They have a small SUV as well.
Their new electric car?
Sold 500 cars in 2022, and now they have 17,000 orders and reservations for their new stuff.
Right.
So I don't see them going anywhere.
Yeah.
Even though they've always been really small. So
Right.
it's not a big deal for them.
Right.
So those are my.
That makes sense.
Probably not, but
What do you think, Neelix?
here's my list going from most likely to least likely.
Okay.
And the most likely one I think to go by the end of the decade is Chrysler.
No chance.
Yes.
They've been around forever. They're part of like American history.
Well, what Chrysler cars are still being built? They only sell one car now. One.
The 300, right?
The 300 just ended this year because it's part of the same with the Dodge
How?
Challengers and all the last call stuff. That
Right.
platform is dead.
Okay.
Coming back as an EV and a Dodge Charger or whatever.
Yeah.
Stellantis has so many brands in the U.S. I was talking about Fiat and them keeping it around because of the electric 500.
Yeah.
But they only have one, and it's the Pacifica minivan.
Ooh.
So it does sell pretty well.
Yeah.
Over 100,000 Pacifica minivan sold.
Right.
7,000 Chrysler 300s last year, but they
Right.
quit making them, so barely any Chrysler 300s.
Yeah.
So that's a lot just for one model, but it's one model for
Right.
one brand. They could easily make it a Dodge Pacifica or bring back the Grand Caravan, something like that. And also the hybrid Pacificas are on the lowest in the quality rating. So we talked about in another video on how much
Yeah.
problems they're having with it. So
is this your first on the chopping block?
I think this is the most likely one to go.
Likely one
when
to
there's
go.
only one model left
Right.
and a brand that has all of these other makes in it,
Right.
I just don't see why.
No, it doesn't make sense.
And there's no like overseas demand for
Right.
it either. Chrysler's not like a high-end name anywhere else.
It's so sad though. It makes me
yeah.
feel like when Pontiac went away, like that's just like a staple in our lives, and then it's just like, how can you just get rid of that?
Yeah. The next one on the list is new to the U.S., but I don't think it'll last very long. That's VinFast.
See, I don't even know what that is. What is that?
It's been here about a year. The Vietnamese electric car brand. They're
I
trying
thought
to
it'd be part of like VinWiki or something. Like he got his own car.
It's a bad name, and they're selling an SUV. It's electric. It's 9 passengers. It's $80,000.
9 passengers though. That's pretty good.
So they're trying to get into the luxury SUV electric market, which is already getting very, very crowded on a brand it's not particularly attractive. It's not super high end. It's not a value price point either. It's a car literally nobody will want in the U.S. It'll sell well in Vietnam because it's a Vietnamese-based company, I imagine.
Sure.
But $80,000 for that. Look at it.
They're good-looking cars. I don't see anything wrong with them.
But there's so many other cars you could buy for $80,000.
You're right.
Buy that?
That's true. But they're getting tinged a little bit because we've never heard of them. So there's no like past value and marketing value pumped into them because it takes a while to build up a brand.
Right. And then inside, the quality is not the same as these European. They're priced as much as a European luxury EV or a Tesla, and the quality is just not there.
I like the name of it though, VinFast. Like here's your VIN number. It's just fast. That's all you need to know.
So by the end of the decade, I think they'll give up and just continue to build cars for their own country and nearby countries, but it won't work in the U.S. The next one I think most likely is Jaguar.
Jaguar, which is the same as Jaguar. Same company.
So Jaguar got sold off to India to Tata Motors 15-ish years ago. And it's just, they're going to go all EV. And it's all SUVs. They're getting rid of their sports cars, any of that heritage at all. And it's just, what are you doing? And the sales definitely show. So 8,300 cars sold in 2023. 9,600 in 2022, so you can see how it's going backwards. 17,000 in 2021 and 21,000 in 2020. So in 4 years, they've gone from 21,000 cars, which isn't very much, to 8,300 cars.
Right. But they're not putting a lot into the marketing and advertising and pumping up the brand, I guess.
And the last generation of gasoline-powered Jaguars, especially with this supercharged V6 that just grenades, it's been terrible for owners. It's been a terrible ownership experience. The cars, once again, you're doing EV SUVs, which everybody is doing right now, and it's a lesser, coveted brand now. I just don't see Jaguar making it by the end of the decade.
It breaks my heart too, because that's just one of the staples that just it's always been there. You know it's going to be there, and now the world is changing.
People aren't going to buy an E-Type if they make the E-Type again. That's called the F-Type. So they're not buying sports cars anymore. They can't make that. So what does Jaguar do?
E-Type sounds like electric type. So
I suppose, but they won't.
You don't want electric cars when you're talking about these vintage racing Jaguars. So that makes sense. I understand there's that kind of divide, but that breaks my heart. I don't want that one on the list.
The next one is Buick.
What?
Poor April.
You just did that on purpose. There's no way Buick's going away. You just want to hurt my feelings.
So everybody says, they'll keep making Buicks forever because people in China love Buicks.
Do they?
Yeah, it's a huge, they sold 600,000 Buicks in China.
Because they're amazing cars.
And 100,000 in the U.S.
Yeah, well, China knows their cars then, apparently.
But that is down 20% in China. And 40% down in sales in the U.S.
What are we doing, Americans? You need to buy Buick.
Well, what are they offering right now? There's not a cool car that Buick...
They need to bring back the Grand National, obviously.
They won't bring it back.
You can have that for free, Buick.
There's
your idea. No commission here. I don't need any residuals. Bring it back, and your 40% decline will just shoot up.
I don't think that the Chinese people are going to continue to buy Buicks if they don't innovate. It seems like there's no creativity, no passion with the Buick brand anymore. They're just building cars to build cars, and they're mostly brand engineered from existing General Motors vehicles. And they're not doing anything special with Buick.
Here's what's special, and you have to admit this in front of Neelix and Jake and you. If their Buick comes out with a Grand National that's all electric, even though that would be blasphemy to put anything other than, that beautiful 3.8 in there.
40-year-old
Would
turbo lag dinosaur, yeah. It's a cool car. But
we would get one, right?
we could get one.
We would get
Yes,
one.
But it's
if they came out with an electric Grand National.
I imagine it'll be a disappointment.
I just want you to say that we would get one.
We would get one, but I think you'll be disappointed. I think it'll be like the second coming of the GTO with the Australians. It was the Hail Mary with Pontiac. When they got rid of the Trans Am, they brought the GTO in, and it was just a rebadged Holden, Australian car. Instead of looking like a cool muscle car, it was very aerodynamic and swoopy and just neat that it had LS Corvette engine in the back seat and all that stuff like the old Trans Am, but it just really didn't catch on.
Right.
So
we're getting one. Just if you make it.
I think the Chinese people are going to buy Teslas. I think they're going to buy other cool brands and things because Tesla keeps creeping in there and they keep scaling up sales in China. And I don't think Buick's going to innovate enough to where it's going to hold the interest. And if they keep dropping 20% a year and 40% here, by the end of the decade,
right.
Buick's
well, there is that
no
stigma
more.
with Buick that it's like that's your grandpa's car, and whatever marketing tools they've used in the past.
That's not a Buick.
That is still stuck on that brand. That's your grandpa's car.
Yes.
So, I hate to say it, but you might be right.
Very sad on that one. The final one, I think it is very possible that McLaren is gone by the end of the decade.
I don't even want to talk to you anymore right now. I'm going to be in here. You really said that out loud?
Yeah.
Like those words left your mouth. You think McLaren
and
is out.
That's your sit back down.
Neelix can talk.
Because the argument...
He's a madman. He's gone crazy.
The argument for them is their sales are up 20% in the last year.
So then why are they going away?
Because they lose like $100,000, $200,000 on every single car they make.
Okay.
So the more cars they make, the more money they lose.
That's true. Someone talked to me about, Viper and how Dodge doesn't make money on the Vipers, but it's just such a cool car that for marketing, it raises their whole brand. And so they just lose money because of all the tech and everything they put into Vipers.
McLaren basically ran out of money several times. They got a big splash of money when they sold their headquarters. So they sold their beautiful campus and then lease it back. They might have to even give that up. Then some angel investor came in and has pumped in hundreds of millions of dollars to keep this going. Some rich guy who just wants to play with cars.
Yeah.
Eventually, it will be over. They will run out of rich playboys with money to throw it at McLaren, take in a bad economy, which is cyclical. Eventually, we will be in a recession. How deep it is, we don't know.
Yeah.
It'll happen, and $200,000 plus luxury cars.
I don't know. They're so deep integrated into the racing world, and there's so much sponsored and marketing money with, IMSA and F1 and just all of those platforms.
They could continue as a racing team. Plenty of racing teams that don't sell cars.
Yeah.
McLaren did it before, where they were a racing team that didn't sell cars.
Yeah.
But it's very possible that they do it again because they've never made money from the beginning.
Right.
Ever.
Okay. I get it. I get what you're saying. So it's, McLaren and Buick. As you're saying they're out.
Yeah, but this is most likely to least likely.
Right. Okay, so you're saying McLaren's at the bottom of your list. Could happen, it's a possibility. But
I think it's a very good possibility.
Okay.
But almost certainty for VinFast and Chrysler with one model.
Right.
And Buick, I think, is pretty likely, even though it's on fourth on the list. So, yeah.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think they should bring back the Grand National Electric.
Did I miss anything? Thank you so much for watching.
Oh, she's licking my forehead. Don't do that. Where is your tongue, Ben?